everyone. I hope you are doing well and staying safe, especially if you were impacted by Helene. I really do wish a speedy recovery for those impacted, and I'll definitely be praying for all of y'all who were impacted. Tonight we're going to be mainly talking about the tropics again, but there will be a part at the end of the video where we'll talk about the severe weather risk for tomorrow as well as Sunday, but mainly we'll be talking about the tropics. But again, kind of looking back on the tropics here, this is going to be the main focus of this video, but we'll still talk about the other areas here. So let's go ahead and get started. So first, looking down kind of into the central Atlantic, we do have tropical storm Leslie right now, and that is as of the latest 7:19 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time update for today on Friday. And then we also have major hurricane Kirk out here into the kind of central Atlantic as well. And then we also have another area that has a 30% chance of developing into a kind of tropical cyclone within the next 7 days, and that is off of the western Africa coast. And then look into this area here into the Gulf of Mexico, which is the main part of this video. This area has a 70% chance of developing into a tropical cyclone within the next 7 days. And so if we look at the 2-day outlook, this has a 30% chance of developing into a tropical cyclone within the next 2 days. And this area, this particular area has kind of been into the outlooks, has been included in the outlooks over the past couple of days, but it originally started as an area all the way out here into the Caribbean that extended into the Gulf of Mexico. And so this area has really over the past 2 days has changed a lot on the models, and the models didn't even show anything really forming from this disturbance. Basically just a maybe weak tropical depression, if that, was showing up on the models from the past from prior days. But really until about yesterday was the first day where models began to show and pick up on a potential maybe tropical storm into the Gulf of Mexico. So that'll be something we'll really need to look at in this video, and we'll just look at what the models show and really what where impacts could be felt and where this could potentially go and how this may develop over the next couple of days. But also first looking at Leslie here, here's the cone of uncertainty as well. And so again, Leslie and Kirk are again expected to head out to sea and not really affect anybody at this time. But I thought I might as well just go ahead and show the cone of uncertainty here. But I know you can't see that curve from the National Hurricane Center, but all models, not really all models, but quite a few of the models, if not all of the models, show it curving out into the Atlantic and not really affecting anybody, especially here into the U.S. or even to the Greater and Lesser Antilles as well. And now looking at Hurricane Kirk here, Kirk is a little bit different and is again not expected to affect anyone as a hurricane or even a major hurricane. But the National Hurricane Center does have it reaching France and the United Kingdom sometime maybe in the middle of next week. And so that'll be something we'll have to watch here. And just really see how the storm plays out. But it still does have Kirk as a maybe a storm, maybe a post-tropical cyclone by the time it would reach maybe going past Spain and then into possibly France or the UK. So that'll be something to watch as well. But again, it will not be a hurricane by any means by the time it reaches this area, just because of the unfavorable environment for storms. And it's kind of rare to see storms that move up to this far to the north and affect these areas. But again, we'll kind of continue to watch that closely as we get more information from the weather models. So first looking at Hurricane Kirk here, and so there still is a lot to figure out over the next couple of days, but here you can see Kirk. This would be Tuesday next week, kind of midday Tuesday. And so the GFS has Kirk continuing to go northeast and eventually kind of makes a landfall, you could say. And by this point, Kirk would probably not have those tropical characteristics kind of as I mentioned earlier, just because the environment is unfavorable, and you just have different kind of like ocean temperatures up into these regions, and it's just again not favorable for any like tropical development, if that would make sense. But it would still have Kirk kind of making a landfall maybe in northwestern France, possibly as maybe a tropical storm by this point. But again, it would probably be a post-tropical cyclone, but at kind of a tropical storm level, you could say, but still would be considered a post-tropical cyclone. And then that will continue up and continue on to the east, and really this would probably lose tropical characteristics maybe sometime early next week. But again, a lot to figure out, and it might also affect maybe places in the southern UK as well. But looking at the European as well, going back here, we look at the 12Z, kind of shows the same thing, making some sort of landfall maybe in France. But again, not too sure about that. There's still a lot to figure out with this, but we're gonna kind of keep continuing to monitor this system and to see how it might evolve. But as y'all know, I really don't focus on many areas outside of the U.S., so I won't be spending a lot of time on this. But there is that model run just in case y'all want to see it. And now looking back at the GFS here and looking at Leslie. So Leslie is expected to continue. So here's Leslie right here. So Leslie is expected to continue west and eventually develop into a hurricane. But then as he gets farther into the Atlantic to the north, it eventually just gets merged into the flow of and kind of troughing with this some more, but other troughing associated with lows kind of over the U.S., and that eventually moves out into the ocean, and that would eventually get picked off there and just thrown out to sea by that trough there. But looking at the 12Z European, we'll go back here. So here's Leslie, and the European actually has Leslie dissipating really and becoming really has it at its peak kind of right now, and eventually just gradually weakens it over the next couple of days, and eventually it is gone basically by sometime in the middle of next week. So this would be great if that would happen and Leslie would just dissipate. But again, it's just always worth watching it just to see how it would play out. But again, it is likely that it will not affect anybody at this time. So now looking at the area in the Gulf of Mexico here, and we're going to go back to the GFS for this, and then we'll go to the European in just a second. But so you have all this moisture here, and this is our area of potential development over the next couple of days and 7 days, with that 70% chance, and then that other chance over the next couple of days. And so this would have a low pressure kind of getting formed maybe early on Monday potentially, or late Sunday night, and then that will continue on to the east, and by maybe early Tuesday morning it would potentially be maybe a tropical depression or possibly a tropical storm by this point, and it will continue east and kind of strengthen it just a little bit, and then weaken and gets merged in with this other low pressure out here. But this wouldn't bring a heavy or a high wind event for Florida, but kind of flooding is something we need to kind of watch here, because you're going to have all this moisture just hanging over Florida really starting this weekend and going all the way into possibly the middle of next week. So the wind isn't the biggest thing we're worried about here, it's the rain. So that is just something to consider, but I'll finish out that run there, and it would have most of the moisture being gone by sometime to the middle of late next week. And then now looking at the European as well, at the 12Z run here, it would have that low pressure finally getting developed sometime again early Monday maybe, and that would already have maybe a tropical depression or a tropical storm by sometime Monday morning. Continue that, has it as a tropical storm, and a strong tropical storm actually, and then would make a possibly a landfall in the Florida Peninsula sometime on Wednesday as a very strong tropical storm, or even a maybe a Category 1 hurricane by that point. But this would be a lot more devastating for these areas, especially with all that rain involved and those winds. Nothing that the Florida Peninsula hasn't seen before, but it would still be a kind of significant event there, and then eventually have everything moved off by sometime Friday. But I think I did forget to mention on the GFS when the landfall would potentially be, but it does have some sort of landfall maybe sometime on Wednesday next week. So again, that'll just be something we'll have to continue to watch there, and same with the European, sometime maybe on Wednesday of next week. But this will likely change, and we probably won't have anything specific until early next week as far as the landfall, or even if this will get developed into a tropical storm. Hopefully it stays below that, and maybe hopefully just a tropical depression or even lower, and just have storms moving into the area. But a tropical storm is seeming more likely as we get kind of early, kind of into this weekend, and then early next week. It is seeming more likely we might have a tropical storm that hits Florida, but hopefully not. And then going, I don't really want to look at the Canadian because it's kind of showing it's been a little crazy over the past couple of days. I'll just say that. But looking at the Canadian here, I won't really spend much time on this because I don't believe this will happen. But it would have a hurricane or a tropical storm, so maybe a hurricane developing and kind of hit the Yucatan Peninsula, and then goes out and just spins around in the Gulf of Mexico, and eventually just has that lingering around, and eventually would move it kind of closer to Florida. But I don't think this will happen. I mean, you can never say it won't, but I just don't think this scenario would play out. And the Canadian has not been that reliable for the past couple days, and really on Helene, the Canadian wasn't too reliable. It did show some runs that did favor the ultimate track of Helene, but it was not the best model out of some of these shown here. But now looking at the European AI model here, going back way before that, but again, the European AI model does show a possible tropical storm, maybe a strong tropical storm that would hit the Florida Peninsula, possibly there. And really the areas that I'm kind of concerned about would be mainly into central Florida, even into southern Florida, but the central Florida Peninsula is the area I'm worried about, because most of the models show a landfall in this area, and these areas are still, they didn't get hit directly by Helene, but they are still recovering from Helene, especially into these areas, but more into the Big Bend of Florida where the landfall was. But again, we'll just have to keep watching that. And then lastly, we'll look at the icon here, and is pretty in line with the European, and GFS has a tropical storm developing sometime Monday into Tuesday, and has that heading east, and eventually would make a landfall as a strong tropical storm or even a hurricane sometime on Wednesday. So I do think that we could have a landfall on Wednesday, but again, the specifics, it's hard to get into specifics because we're still just a little far out. But again, we'll have to continue to watch that and keep up with these models as we get closer to a potential landfall, and if this storm does form. So real quick here, we'll just look at possible wind accumulations from the European and GFS, and we'll also look at rain accumulations that could be possible with this storm. So if we go all the way, we'll go through to 5 days out, and this is all the way from Friday tonight all the way into kind of Wednesday night into early on Thursday. And so wind accumulations, if you don't know, this is just a accumulation of the highest wind gust or wind speeds that could be possible in these areas. And so first, looking at the European model here, It does have some areas showing maybe lower 60-mile-per-hour winds possible in the mid to lower 50s throughout much of the Florida Peninsula, and even basically into the upper 40s and lower 50-mile-per-hour winds possible there. And then even on the east coast of Florida, the European does show some areas that could even see 70-mile-per-hour winds, but I think that's a little overdone. I think maybe even 80 showing up there, but I think 70 to 60-mile-per-hour winds could be possible here on the northeast coast coast on the Florida Peninsula here. So that'll just be something to watch too. And I do think with the winds and the rain expected that we could see some widespread power outages with this. And so we'll go to the GFS here as well. And so GFS is kind of similar. It does not show as extreme winds here. Some wind accumulations and top wind speeds into the lower and mid 40-mile-per-hour range up into the lower 50-mile-per-hour range. And I do think this is I do like this a lot better than the kind of extreme stuff that the European showed. But the European would have that making a landfall as a stronger storm, so that would make a lot more sense why it would be that high. But I do think some of these areas could see wind gusts up to 50 miles per hour, in some areas there. But now looking at rain accumulation here, so the GFS and European are kind of similar for rain accumulations in some spots. I mean, even in all the way into southern Florida, could see a couple inches from this, but even into places like Spring Hill, Tampa, Orlando, Palm Coast, maybe anywhere up to 9 or even 10 inches of rain, possible in these areas. Even into Orlando, over 7 inches possible there. And this is on the GFS. This is not an official forecast, but just from one model run. Even in Spring Hill, Florida, almost 8 inches showing up there. But I do think at least 5 to 6, maybe 7 inches of rain is possible in some spots, really into central and north central Florida as we go into the middle and later into next week with all these with the storm and all the moisture just lingering around in this area. And then looking at the European as well, we'll go a little farther here into kind of Thursday morning. So the European isn't as extreme, but it still does show some isolated spots of 6 to 7 inches of rain in some areas. Spring Hill over 5 inches, Tampa maybe almost 8 inches, but still way over 7 or 7.5 inches. Palm Coast, Florida, over 8 inches. Orlando, over 4.5 inches. And then even into Sarasota, maybe 8, possibly 9 inches showing up there. And this would have more rainfall into kind of southern Florida as well, and even into these southern regions, 4 to 5 inches of rain there, and then 5 there up here into northern Florida, 3 to a couple inches possible there. But that is again the European model, and so we'll just have to continue to watch this, and we'll see how these models compare to the official forecast once this storm, if this storm does form. But we'll kind of compare this and see how the National Hurricane Center makes the forecast and that rainfall forecast to see kind of which model was the most accurate. So now looking at the Day 2 Severe Storm Prediction Center outlook for tomorrow on Saturday, October the 5th, 2024. And we do have a marginal risk here all the way from parts of northeastern Wisconsin into parts of the upper Michigan Peninsula there. And so we do not have a tornado risk with this, but we do have a wind and hail risk. And there is a 5% wind risk here and a 5% hail risk for this area that has the marginal risk for tomorrow on Saturday. So the 0Z run is not out yet, but we will use the 18Z run from today. And so we could have storms beginning to form and showers beginning to form later tomorrow, kind of into tomorrow evening across maybe Wisconsin and into the upper Michigan Peninsula there. And so some strong storms here, especially into the into Wisconsin, and even the upper Michigan Peninsula there. And those mainly begin to weaken sometime very early on Sunday, and move out of these areas by early Sunday morning. And so really the worst of these storms should come through again probably tomorrow evening into tomorrow night across these areas, and again move out sometime early on Sunday. And now looking at the day 3 severe thunderstorm outlook, and this is for Sunday, October the 6th, 2024. And so we do have a marginal risk here all the way from New York State into Pennsylvania here, into a section of extreme kind of southeastern Ohio, into a section of Maryland, and then into West Virginia as well. And so that is for that risk on Sunday. And again, looking at the probabilistic here, is a 5% chance at this time, which is again an automatic marginal risk at this time. And so just quickly looking at the marginal risk for Sunday, you're going to have this trough. You can see it a little better on the 500 millibar heights here. So here's our main trough way up here into Canada. And so there is midday Sunday, and then even into Sunday afternoon, you have that trough that kind of digs to the south just slightly, and that will promote these storms to develop, and so those would get going there, and then you would have some storms that begin to form into these areas, as you can see on the GFS, and you have those showers and storms kind of moving to the southeast and east into Sunday, or throughout Sunday into late Sunday night into early on Monday. So that's going to be it for tonight's update. I hope all of y'all continue to stay safe if you were impacted by Helene, and I wish all y'all a speedy recovery, and I will continue to pray for all y'all affected by Helene. I live in the foothills of North Carolina, and we got hit kind of hard, but nothing like what the mountains got of North Carolina and Tennessee. But we did have a few trees down, but nothing too major. Nothing like the mountains, as I said. But again, I do really hope y'all have a speedy recovery, and I'll continue to pray for y'all. And again, I do appreciate all of y'all watching, and I will try my best to have another video up tomorrow night, but I can't guarantee it. But again, I hope all of y'all stay safe and have a great night.